All right. Call to order. May we have a pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Bethel.
I'm here.
Trustee Winkleblack. Trustee Price.
Present.
Trustee Stalling.
Here.
Mayor Wilcox.
Here. Any changes or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none. Persons on the agenda?
I'm just gonna get the podium out.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
There's Gary, so Gary is here. Wait for him to be.
Hello, Mayor. Hello.
Afternoon.
Bruce, how you doing, buddy? Good. Well, good to see you, boy.
I should open that. That's good now. Okay. Since there's no hearing that speakers, we'll go right to number 6, staffing discussions. A contract with Drew Smith for staffing evaluation, assessment, and general assistance. And so, are there any?
Hi,
Afternoon.
I've met everybody all of a sudden. The one that I've known the longest is Gary. Had a girlfriend that was a school teacher and Gary. I was thinking Leah too, but that didn't work probably. But at any rate, I've been Gary for 40 years. I think that's about right, 42 maybe. Not quite sure where to start here. Maybe the ones of you. How about I assume like you don't know me? This is kind of the quick and dirty who I am that's relevant to what you're interested in. Bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Colorado State University. The master's degree, both in political science department, the master's degree, my specialty or what have you, I don't remember the right term, was public administration. My master's thesis was public law 92-500. The beautiful title of the Water Pollution Control Act amendments of 1972. And the implementation of them in the city of Pueblo. How that all worked is the city of Pueblo hired me out of graduate school to be city management intern. And the city manager, this was his program, of course. His intent, the only intent, was to train city managers to, take care of the profession. And so the way that worked, you weren't expected to do work, you were expected to learn how to be a city manager. And he worked in every department and in every agency in the city, and we're supposed to learn how to do that because the manager's philosophy was if you couldn't run a department, any department, you couldn't be the manager. You had to be able to do every one of the department heads' jobs. And so my training was pretty unique. There's a lot of people that did internships, but very few of them were like that. But along the way, what happened was supposed to be a 6-month internship, and I got actually the finance. So the finance kind of took me under his wing, and he would have kept me in the finance department if he could. But at any rate, I got a heavy indoctrination in the municipal finance. And I think he leaned on the city manager because Fred Weisbrod, the city manager, really didn't like me. And I think that's hard to believe. At any rate, Miller and others convinced Fred that they needed to hire me. Well, Pueblo, you remember. I know, you'd probably think of Pueblo #1. It's an old union town, solid Democrats, all that. Well, City of Pueblo is union, civil service, and the city personnel department. Creating a position was a war. But at any rate, they created a position, advertised for it, so I was officially a civil servant employee that was sent to the public works department to help them with some specific stuff. Works of which was sewer. And grants from the EPA. Construction grants, and so that's. Got indoctrinated into the construction and pretty quickly got indoctrinated into the litigation that goes along with construction, which is a whole other deal. But the city attorney and I became friends, even though he was 20 years older than me. And he kind of took me under his wing too. And one day I couldn't tell you what year, late 70s, something. We needed a resolution, award maybe in the construction contract. But at any rate, the city attorney didn't have time, so I wrote the resolution of award for the council meeting that night. Tom said I did a good job, and after that, then I started doing other, I wrote, I couldn't tell you how many resolutions and sometimes ordinances. So at any rate, when I came over to the Western Slope to work for Collbran and Beck, I could do a lot of the stuff in Florida. And that saved the towns a lot of money. Ed Sands didn't think a lot of it. But most of the municipal code, the way the code was when I left, most of it I wrote. There was no planning and zoning documents. I did not write the water rights dedication on Jim Lockett wrote that, but pretty much everything else. And then Carter and Sands, I think it was codified it twice. And I know that Dusty, because I just asked her, she typed it at least once. And why you all don't have them, I'm not sure. We used to, you got on the board, you got several things, one of them was
Up the river.
versions, you got a copy of the municipal code. They will call you and they want to know, who knows? They want to know, about, makes me smile thinking of it, having a turkey, at large in town, whether that was legal. When you look at the code, and so the board members could answer a lot of questions themselves. Hopefully they always say you should go to town hall and confirm it, but I think if the code means it. So, but at any rate, so I had, before I ever got to Western Colorado, I had experience in literally every part of, especially small town government. So at any rate, from the time I retired in Pueblo, I worked continuously in local government in Colorado for over 40 years. And I think 15 of which were involved the town of Collbran. From 82 to 86. And then again, after I left Copper Mountain from 95 to 2005. Okay, so that's the quick and dirty on the resume, but the quick was it. But the issue at hand is, why I'm here today. Part of this, I need you to tell me, I'm not sure whether you're looking for an interim town administrator or town manager, whatever you call them. Or whether you're looking for consulting to do specific things. Get advertisements together for the staff that needs to be hired, that sort of thing. That's saying it's the reason that I asked is there's a huge difference. If you want somebody to come down and spend the 3 hours a day or whatever, 3 days a week or something like that, that's one thing. If you want somebody to help you with specific items, that's something else, but as I understand it. And I don't really understand too much, I don't know much about what your situation is, you need to straighten me out. You kind of are, you lost continuity, that's what happened. And really, you probably lost it in 2005. And then hired people with, I don't know. I don't have any reason to say anything bad about anybody in the past, let's move forward, but it sounds to me like, things that were done that you leave you scratching your head. And so before I could tell you what I could do for you, I need to know that, what's the job?
Well, primarily what. I guess my interpretation or vision is to. Give Dusty the assistance that she needs or direction. We need to support Dusty because she does want to stay.
I need you to yell at.
I do have a soft voice. Yeah.
Yeah, come closer, just watch out.
Pretty informal, you're recording it, they can't see me stand by you.
You can bring up a chair if you want.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to. If
Oh, I
I said you
don't,
closer.
okay.
While we're doing this, that Denise tells me that on the Zoom says that the host has another meeting in progress. So the Zoom is not functioning. So
It's
we talk about
working.
transparency.
I was gonna say, if I entered her into the room, she should be on.
It's, I
That's
know.
all I know.
Part of it's our internet connection.
We have a lag in the system. But you can hear us, Denise?
Not well, not up, yeah.
No, I can hear, it started.
Right.
Your voice is distorted too, so I guess we hear what you're hearing.
Say what?
Oh, her voice is distorted too, so she must be hearing a distorted version.
Our Zoom kind of breaks up because of the lag between here and there. Which is something we've talked about since we've got on the board, is maybe possibly replacing some equipment and updating, maybe getting a little more bandwidth so that we can have clear, understood conversations, whether it be with an attorney or somebody that's zooming in like Denise. But the main thing is Dusty is considering staying long-term, so we would like for her to have the assistance and the
Training.
training and backup, so we have a good direction. I remember working on those ordinances, you say, when we rewrote them years ago, when we were on the board, and or you did, and then we approved them and updated everything. And every board member did have a 3-ring binder that we
I
could
looked for
study.
help to find mine, and I had it until recently, I don't know where it went.
Yeah. And I had to turn mine back in.
But it, you know, it's a handy thing, some people are very much against the paper stuff, and it really, think about it. Paper is not, I mean, it's not like paper is killing the rainforest in Brazil, that's not where paper comes from, but
Right.
at any rate, so that's how they feel about it, and that's okay. So they shouldn't have one, but everybody that wants one will have one.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
it's
we're
just-
told there was a digital policy put in place. I've read for 10 years worth of minutes and I can't find it. So we haven't had, I've requested my board packet for over a year in paper. So I mean, these are kind of things that need, although it's very minor to anybody else, it is very important for me to have everything in paper. And I would love to have a municipal code because I did go through and print mine and 3-ring it, and then it was updated a month later, so. So, you know, I don't really feel like doing
It
that.
makes things a lot easier out of
Yeah,
board meeting sites. You know, you get to talk about something in a board meeting and somebody says, well, you know, Article 5,
mhm,
Section 3 says something like, if you have the paper version, it's
mhm.
pretty easy to get on the same page. If everybody's looking at it.
Right, can go right to it with,
It's a little harder to get one. But anyway, that's not really what we're kind of getting off.
Well, that is one of the things is we need to be taught as a board how to request policies to be put in place. Because the only thing we've been told in the last year is no, that's not the way it's done. I have a list of
It's
things.
done however you want it done. Everybody.
We're not having this problem.
They don't work for you.
Right.
Your budget, it's your money. It doesn't make a hoot and hell whether it's Bruce Smith or Mel, whatever, I don't know her name, but it doesn't work for you.
Yeah,
And so whatever you all want as a group,
right,
I mean, we don't have 5 micromanagers. We've got
right,
a group. And the way that I do business is I like to go through the mayor.
Yeah.
So, if one or another of you wants a piece of information, I'd like you to let the mayor know. And then the mayor would let me know, and I'll find whatever it is for you.
right.
There's one thing that I've seen that really just drives me crazy. And I'll tell you, it's just not following the law. I saw a request for, we call it a core request,
Yeah,
the open records law, the sunshine,
yeah,
one public, these are public records.
oh, my court
Why-
request,
It's a
yeah,
public-
yeah,
it's a simple law, not complicated. Some of the case law that goes along with it, a little more complicated.
right,
Basically, everything in this building, except for the personnel files and the sales tax,
mhm,
and the more complicated stuff is the working papers. That's what the courts have decided. But what's a working paper and what it is,
mhm.
all this is public record. So I don't care who it is, they walk in and they want to see, especially the things like water and sewer rates, but they want to see the meeting minutes from 1991. Find them.
right,
That doesn't mean that you have to spend your life being a research librarian.
Mhm.
I mean, you've got to draw a line there somewhere, but this ought to be free, ought to be,
Mhm.
and this is the stuff that people want. They want to know how the auditorium got like it is. And you know, I should have been fired at the auditorium, but at any rate, that. Did you go what year, what date? And you'll look to see what you can find for them, show it to them, and tell them thank you, and they're on their way.
Right,
I mean, so this, how, I don't know how things got like they are. But it doesn't matter, what you need to do is worry about tomorrow. You know, yesterday is kind of the
So
things
this
that
is,
I heard, I hope aren't true, but what you need is a board that works together. You don't have to agree on everything, but works together. I mean, that's. I mean,
Come,
you want somebody to come down here and just be another player in a dogfight. You got the wrong guy.
right,
I'm not gonna do that.
right,
I am not gonna do that at all. And. The other thing that I'll tell you, for you guys that don't really know me well. Let me give you the reasons not to hire me. Number one. I'm old. The face that you want. On the town of Collbran town government. Is a young, good-looking person, hopefully good-looking, but a young person. That kind of. Meets the atmosphere the way you see it. Being kind of deaf is a problem. That's another good reason, another reason not to hire me. I could do something about that if I had cared that much. Sometimes I don't want to hear my wife.
Being kind of what, Bruce?
Huh?
Say that again.
I get
I heard it.
Wow. But my eyesight is very poor. And so like in this light here. The notes that I had made coming down here. I probably couldn't read them. And so I'd have to have somebody. That can type for me, because if you can't see the computer screen. The keyboard's a problem, and I always did type like that. I've had secretaries tell me that I could type faster with one finger than they could with 10, but you know, maybe they were just buttering the boss up. You know. But your permanent guy or girl, poorly put, huh? Permanent person permanently in the position should be a young person, and you should, when you hire them, you should feel like you can get at least 3 years. And if you wanted somebody to train them, I would be glad to do that. I mean, now you're talking about a part-time advisory job. The other thing that I don't want, by the way, I don't want a title. Once you're a title employee, you know that Dusty heard this over at Stats. They heard it about me. People can say anything you want about the mayor,
mhm,
the trustees, and you don't have any way to get, not any way, but basically slander and libel are all. And I don't want to be in that spot. People start throwing rocks at me down here and lying about me to ruin my image in the community. I want to be able to get at them, because that will shut them up. There's nothing people in Plateau Valley like more than their money. They think it's in jeopardy, they'll shut up. I can't shut them up at you all, because you have the position. Town manager or town, whatever, is a officer in the town. And that basically takes slander and liability off. You could say anything you want. No, I don't want to be in that. I'm much too old for that. I mean, that's just how it is. I want to see you guys. The only reason that I'm here is I want to help you. And you're going to get back to reasons not to hire me. When I left here in 2005, over an idiot that was mayor named John Blady, the board didn't agree with him. But I was so sick of all this crap that he'd spread around town, I couldn't do a thing about it. People would come to the board meeting, and I mean, there was people claiming that I stole money from them, and you know, stuff that you just want to, when you're a younger guy, you want to punch him in the face. I couldn't do anything about that. And so the board, actually, the original plan, when I left here in 2004, the board suggested that they write a contract for me for like 3 years. And I said, no, I'm not. If the people want me gone, I should be gone. And I have always felt like it's the mayor. If the mayor wants me gone, I go. And that's when I left Tibet. That's exactly the newspaper couldn't figure out, Smith suddenly submitted his resignation. Well, the mayor, Doc, he's a pretty good guy and kind of a friend. But he wanted me gone. So I resigned.
Well, you were with Quebec for like 15 years, weren't you?
Huh?
You were with Quebec for like 15 years?
I worked for Quebec with Collbran 82 to 86. And then from 2007, about 2012, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Quebec was always a hard place to work. I worked as a manager at Palisade for 3 years.
I remember that.
Because the mayor from Palisade, a guy named Larry McNeese, came up here and asked me basically to go to work for him in Palisade. And what had happened, see if this sounds familiar. They had an election. Former town clerk had run for mayor against the mayor. The mayor won, the staff quit. The only ones left were the cops. And the honest to God truth is that the one cop was a criminal and the others were incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, as a young guy, it was definitely challenging. But they were hoping that I had the highest degree or had it, it's expired, highest degree of certification in running water and wastewater plants, collection system, distribution system. So they kind of had it in mind, like I was gonna come down there, run their water and sewer plants, from 8 to 8:30, I guess. And then go to the town hall and do everything else. Palisade in those days was a horrible place to work. I mean, first day was that people were lined up down the street to come in and talk to them. And they all wanted something.
Right.
It wasn't just go and say, and it was, so I hated it. That's why I lasted 3 years there. But getting back to why you shouldn't harm this, the eyesight thing is really a big issue. Like I said, in this light, I couldn't read my notes. I carry one hand, I got it with. When I go to the hardware store, if I want to see how much something costs, I need my little light, and if it's down low, I crawl on the floor and read it. That's where my eyesight is. And the reason that it would be, I can rely on Dusty to help me with a lot of this stuff. And if the light's good enough, I can read over it. But used to type, basically can't do that anymore. And I can't see what I print or write longhand. So I'd have to give that kind of stuff to somebody, had to type it for me, for you all. If we're talking about job descriptions and notices to file, for vacant positions, not much of a deal. We're talking 2 or 3 pages worth of stuff. The biggest problem I think with my eyesight would be, so it's been over 10 years since I have dealt with the state law on a day-to-day basis. So first thing that I would need to do is go look at Title 32, skim through there and see what changed. And I can do that, but it's because I don't see well, it will take me some time, which means that it costs you some money. Okay. And the other reason I started on this and didn't finish it, when I left here in 2005, town was supposed to pay insurance for, I don't know how long. A few months anyway, and John Glady stopped that.
Yeah, I thought it was 6 months to a year.
Yeah, it was, I don't remember the specifics of that, but I'll tell you, it was for, there was just me.
Right,
My insurance is pretty cheap, but for Shirley, who's elderly. Um, and Aaron, his family, the insurance was big number,
right,
and so that resulted in a lawsuit, and it was all just about the dishonesty of the one guy, the dishonesty of the mayor. And the board that came on when the board that was in place when me and Shirley and Eric quit, then they resigned, and that's what really got things in Never Land. So you had a totally new board and inexperienced. And now they gotta hire people to fill these vacancies, and that's how you got where you are today, I think.
yeah,
I may be
right,
wrong.
no,
I think that's what happened, but one thing's for sure, you lost continuity, and that's tough. I mean,
Bruce,
yes, sir,
I can only speak for myself, but I can tell you what I would ask of you.
yes, sir.
I feel that we need to advertise through some professional municipal organizations. We need to advertise for a town administrator. Whether we do it for a 2-day, 3-day, I would like for us to advertise that as soon as possible. Bring somebody on board who's going to be a permanent one. But with your reputation, I'd like for you to help us vet those applicants. And if we hire somebody, then be a part of training them, what bring them on board and get them adjusted into the program. I think that's
I'm
the best
delighted to
thing.
hear
I
you say
want
that,
somebody.
because that's the direction you all have.
Yeah.
That's what let me tell you what's gonna happen. There's really only a couple of places to advertise this job that make any sense. The best is gonna be the municipal league, job finder, I think they call it. The other one's Special District Association, FDA, have the same sort of thing. And it's been 10 years, Dusty probably knows better than I do. But there may be others, but those are gonna be the quick ones. You don't wanna advertise in the Denver Post, it'll cost you $5,000. I mean, that's really,
What about the
I've made
Daily
it.
Sentinel? Is it worth it to go in the Daily Sentinel if there's some
I wouldn't give the
semi-retired?
Daily Sentinel anything, I wouldn't,
Okay,
yeah, I think you'd be better off to put it in the Thrifty Nickel.
right,
I really, that's,
right.
I think the Daily Sentinel, I think people have stopped reading it. And I think that they might as well.
Yeah.
Put themselves down.
Well, here's the deal. I talked to Paonia for like 2 hours yesterday, and she said they were in the same boat.
Wrong town.
Well, she said the first thing they did is they finally hired a municipal administrator with municipal experience. And that pulled them out of the crack they were in. And he's been there for 2 years. And she said, and in the small towns, it's just common that you have somebody qualified to answer the phone, and 10 years later, they're in charge of everything, but they still don't know. It's nothing malicious. It's just they don't know how things are run. And that's the first step, is to get somebody who's qualified for the position. And I told her that we were talking to a retired administrator tomorrow to aid in that. But we have a lot of things going on that maybe they can be put on hold. But one of the things that I had to submit a core request, because for a year I haven't been able to find out where we are with our water rights. Everybody just says they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. And when we got the interim administrator, she said, I'll look right into it. And she didn't, so I submitted a core request. I did eventually, like 20 days later, get a list of all of our deeded water rights, but I was told that it was client attorney privileged information as to if we were up to date with our 5-year annual filing with the state. Are these something that you're experienced in looking into? Because I know nobody else seems concerned, but water rights right now are going for $500,000 on the East Slope, and we're not for for a share. We're not far behind them, and nobody seems to know where we are with our water rights. There's rumors they've been abandoned. There's rumors we
I
haven't.
think when I left here, I think you had no conditional water rights
Mhm.
outstanding. I'm sure we made. Thinking there was two. Conditional rights, we made them absolute. And so the absolute water rights, the only filings that you need to make are with the district engineer's office, and they're show what the usage was during the previous irrigation year. See, water rights shouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't, I say I standing here, I'd have to,
It's all
I'd
top
have to
secret.
research this, but somewhere there was I don't know whether it was a book or a file here that showed all the town's water rights.
Right,
This wasn't a town that had, like Palisades is like about that thick.
yeah.
But I think we were talking next to nothing. I mean, there's only a couple of ditches here.
Well, I found in the expenditures that I read every month that we were charging ourselves $1,800 a month to water Terrell Park with municipal water when we have the second rights on the Fitzpatrick ditch.
Well, I think that's right. I think the town owns a right on the Fitzpatrick.
Well, we're
I
being,
don't think it's conditional.
you don't think that one's conditional?
I don't think you have any conditional rights left. I think, you wanna know the truth, I think it was even in 2005, I think Jim Lockhead and I did it in 1980 something.
Mhm.
It's one of those, you look at it and you go, well, why, we're making full use of the water rights. Why wouldn't we make them absolute and get this, the quick way to lose water rights is to have a conditional right and not file the diligence report.
Right,
They're required every 6 years. And when you don't file them, that's a hell of a step toward abandonment. The other one is go 10 years without showing use, and that means without filing paperwork.
mhm,
Okay, but
mhm.
I did go to the county yesterday and I printed up a map and I brought it to Dusty. And it does show where next to us, where Lisa Perez is now and the Gordon, where there's a 20-foot irrigation easement that comes back from that corner that has been used to bring down to Lee Lentz Madero subdivision and that back pasture and the park, for the whole Terrell subdivision. But there's been water come down there until last year when John Hilker passed away, and then Forey bought it and he resold it to Andy Asgaraga, the back pasture part of it. But when Teresa and I bought that tract A, Mrs. Terrell said that she had turned over the water rights for the Fitzpatrick they were donated to the town for the Terrell subdivision. But usage wise, I mean, Leon Peach built our house and he put that black poly in, and we had this discussion when I was on the board before. So, and it wasn't just for my lots, but most of the lots on the block were used through that. But the Mike, with the tech can show where the irrigation isn't on sprinkler, where they would flood the park from the surface water. That's one thing that the state did come down and say there is no such thing as wastewater, it's surface water. And so that water was used to irrigate the part of the park that didn't have a sprinkler system.
I don't really remember this for sure, but I tell you where you'd look. When subdivision, you just said the name that you lived in was done. I think the water rights dedication ordinance is probably still the one on the books. Jim Lockhead had written it in about 1982, it was before I got here. And so it would have required it in order, it does. The subdivision has to convey the water rights basically to support itself, think of it that way.
Right.
To the town, and so the town got a water rights dedication and also water the park. And so
Right,
Ford can't find it. Well, it's tough. You talk to the water commissioner is a good place to start. But, those rights, I didn't believe they're conditional. And I think even when Pudge Cox was the water commissioner in this area, me and Pudge are not exactly friends,
right,
but Pudge did his job, and that was, he come around and
turn the water on.
how much water did you use during the previous year? Pudge took care of all that, so the guys that have followed him in that job, I don't know if they did that or not.
But that is one thing that the Gordons did when they replatted and rearranged some lot lines is they did put, and it shows a 20-foot irrigation easement. And that's the way the water has come down to feed all of that since long before we even moved here. So that is on their plat, but
The water has, the law, Colorado law requires that irrigation water be measurable.
right,
And we measure it at the head gate,
right,
and then it's up to the ditch rider for the individual ditch to settle the fights over number one right on that ditch and number
Yeah.
10 right on that ditch.
yeah, we did learn that.
Getting their fair shares, what they're entitled to. So, but this has been, this isn't a problem. It's a big deal to fix. I mean, you're not talking a lot of money.
Are you willing to look into our water rights? I mean, I
Sure.
don't want to limit you to just,
I was starting in files.
I don't want to limit you, our contract with you to hiring and recruitment and advisement. There's a lot of things right now. We've offered our job to a water attorney, so we're gonna need contracts looked over for that. We're hiring a new municipal attorney. We need advisement and help with that. We put a 90-day moratorium on our tap and sewer fees because somehow throughout the years, and I guess it used to be, Penny said, there was attachments to getting a tap fee, like you have to have a building permit in hand and it's good for so long. Whereas now anybody can go buy a water tap fee and lock into today's price. And
I don't know, that
Do it.
didn't happen unless the municipal code would need to be amended. In order to amend it, the code, you need an ordinance. It has to be,
right,
it has to be advertised, it has to be published, and it has to be recorded.
yeah,
Anything else, if it's done, the law is no damn good on.
Yeah.
Your law is no damn good on.
Yeah.
And people are doing things saying, well, the ordinance says this and that it doesn't say. They have no right to collect any money or do anything.
right. And there was no public hearings for the last, that I know of. All I have is access to the minutes. They just would vote in an ordinance with no public
So I
hearing.
think what happened is that people didn't understand that that's state law specified, but ordinances and resolutions, what they look like.
Yeah, I understand that, but we are writing on ordinances that were voted in by previous board members with no hearings, with no public hearings, and I don't know if they were posted in a newspaper
If there
publication.
wasn't something in writing, it doesn't mean a damn thing.
So all of our raises for the last 10 years in water that were passed by ordinances in January of every year are null and void.
If they
What
didn't.
I would say, I'd want to see what they did, but
I mean, are these things that you can review so that we can see
Yeah, I
where
mean,
we're
this-
at? And what happened in the past is in the past. I'm not saying anybody needs to get in trouble, but we need to be legally brought up to speed and know where we are, and we need somebody experienced. And then we need help finding somebody experienced to help with that.
Well,
let me tell you one that, I don't want to talk about this, but I kind of have to. Because regardless of what you do with me, you need to make sure this is right. If your water and sewer ordinances were not lawfully adopted, you have no right to keep that money. Yeah, and so if this say had been going on since 2005, you could be talking about a huge leak. Hopefully that isn't what's happened. But I hear about water rights and the water bills and tap fee numbers that don't ring a bell with me. Well, it could be that I just don't remember it, but it could be that
When you,
it was collected unlawfully, and that's, let me tell you, that's a huge problem.
when you left, it was $1,500 a piece, and then shortly thereafter, between just after 2006, 2007, it was raised to $4,500 a piece. Now, whether that was done through the due process and done lawfully, I don't know, but that's where they're at now. But my concerns are like Gary's is primarily training so that Dusty knows where to look if she doesn't already, or just the assistance. Okay, so that if there is a piece missing, it'll click and she can put the puzzles together. So that my main thing is to support Dusty and the staff so that we can go forward correctly. So that, like I say, the training and what to look for, that type of thing.
One of the things that needs to be done is to go back, I would say till you start in 2005. You go forward and compare that to what's going on with the water and sewer billing and the tap fee collection. If there's been any, you can find the tap fees in the audit. They'll show up, and it's because it won't have been a big number. And I don't know if you build anything new or not. I kind of doubt it. The economy's been kind of dead since 2010. You know, after when the last bust from the oil and gas drilling. But anyway, you need to go back and look at that and satisfy yourself that everything is right. That what the adopted rates are, the lawfully adopted rates which are collecting. Hopefully they are, and you just move forward. We don't need to throw rocks at people that have been here before. I know how I feel. I don't like it. And you can get away with it because they're public figures.
Right.
Do it.
Well, I'm real new on here and I'm learning as I'm going.
Say that.
But I said I'm learning as I'm going. But from what I've heard, your experience and knowledge of the situation we're in.
Say that again. Yeah, I'm sorry. I normally don't do this. I just don't hear it and nobody knows.
I said, with your experience is what we're looking at, and knowledge. That's what we need. We need guidance to go forward and do it correctly. And I'm not saying the name thing in the past, what's done is done.
Yeah.
But what we need to do now is we need to look forward for the next generation or whatever to come in and have it set up towards right and not. I don't want us to fail.
Basically recognize what we need and give us the direction to go forward. Like you say, we don't want to throw rocks in the past, but we want to take it from here and go forward.
If somebody stole money, you run across that, that's one thing.
Right.
I went, yesterday, I sat there and I was thinking, so just for drill, I think I'll make a list of questions, ask a prospective town manager, manager applicant. Well, that's one of them. Ask them about stuff, ask them about what's the diligence period. But what's gonna happen? You're gonna get somebody that doesn't know this stuff. You ask them a question at an interview to find out what they don't know as well as what they know. And so it took me 40 years to learn all this. You're gonna hire a guy or a gal that's 25. What do you expect them to know? So I would like to help you train that guy if that's what you have in mind. That would be fine.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like the board needs a little training too.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's one of the things that I'd say, you need to go to the municipal league meetings. you'll learn a lot just from shooting the breeze with elected officials from other towns. And the annual meeting that, you guys don't go to the,
We haven't.
the annual meeting's like the last week in June, is when it always was. Usually in Vale or Breckenridge, sometimes Steamboat. Every now and then they'll throw a bone to somebody and it'll be at Lamar. But most of the times it's at someplace nice where you like to go and you take your wife and your kids and whatever the situation is and you, whether you learn anything at the individual training center, who knows? Because you're talking to people that don't know a lot more than you. But you'll learn a lot from what's going on in these other towns.
Yeah.
You'll learn a
That
tremendous.
statewide,
You wanna know what I used to do? By the way, I don't drink anymore. That's one of, and it's just because I got old. I want to be able to drink like a fish when I can. But I lost my train of thought there. Oh, the municipal people. The you wanna learn from everyone. And you can find, you won't feel so stupid when you hear the same stuff or worse from the mayor of Springfield. You know, or a board member from Eads or Kiowa. Actually, you talk to those people from out on the plains, you'll start feeling pretty good about yourself. Because they got no money at all. I mean,
Right.
if they don't have any money, you can't hardly make any mistakes. I mean, you gotta have money to screw things up.
Yeah, the town of Kiowa has 800 people and they have 2 full-time office staff. And she said, we operate efficiently on a budget, a portion of the size with 2 full-time office staff.
Think of it this way. And that's a really good point, by the way. Think of Collbran this way. Let's say before 1982, when the county sales tax was passed. The town of Collbran budget, the revenues would have been property taxes, fees for services, and fines from the municipal court. So the total budget was probably a number like $70,000-80,000 a year. And so, like, if you weren't satisfied, some of you guys, you know, Bert Chase.
yeah,
Bert was the
right,
cop, and,
right, he was
you know,
marked.
and the reason he had Bert was because he's a good old guy. And he wasn't always old, but he was all you could afford.
Right,
And so then now you're giving 300,000 to the county.
350,000, $1,000 a day.
So we made that mistake before. And I think that you'll learn that that's a mistake. Making mistakes is okay, but you learn from them, you move on to the next.
Yeah.
But if you start feeling like it's a mistake and you need to get organized.
And the state,
Hire people, and you're gonna have the exact same problem, hiring somebody to be the clerk and the administrator. And that is, you're gonna, the people that apply are washed up old bums. No, I was washed today, but washed up old bums, people that have screwed up real bad, young people. And the only way to get around that is to pay an astronomical number, which, if you want to know the truth, I think you were kind of doing. I mean, you were paying a big numbers for a town this size, but. And the cops are even worse. The applicants that you get for cops, you have to be really careful. You remember Mike Sell?
yes,
Well, I was here, Mike Sell was one of the first people that got hired when I was here. The mayor at the time, Gene Click, rented a house that the town cop lived in. Gene didn't think much of the guy. Well, I don't know, but anyways, the guy left. And Mike Sell applied, and the immediate, it didn't take Albert Einstein to figure out that. So Mike Sell applied, and he had been a sergeant from the Summit County Sheriff's Office. Oh, and he's like 35, somewhere in there. So what's wrong with this application? Wow, he shouldn't be in the file. The chief of police from Levita was another one that had applied. Another one was, Hogan Sports all in the same cycle. State Patrol Traffic Investigator. You tell you, hilarious, stupid name. But at any rate, when you see, you got an applicant, this is a great applicant, we need to hire this guy. Well, I didn't hire, the employees work for the board. But I told Gene Click, and I called Summit County looking for a reference on Whitestone, I got put on hold. Well, that told me the whole story. I mean, I really didn't have to look much further. And I'm not gonna badmouth Dave, I don't even know if he's still alive, but you're gonna have, that's exactly what things are gonna look like when you go to hire an administrator. You know, and if you put a great big salary on it, that doesn't solve the problem. I mean, the guy you're looking for has to be, you're looking for a motivated guy. And unlike because I was like, they made, the city manager in Pueblo hammered me into being a professional manager. You know, when I was young. And I'm not a guy that just can sit around and not do things. If ever there was a guy that idle hands sew the devil's web, you're looking at him. If I don't have enough to do and start thinking of things to do,
You'll find something
it's,
to do.
who knows, you know,
And that goes right back to, do we need a full-time administrator here?
Right.
Do we get a part-time? You know, 2-3 days a week, I mean, that's why I think, I like what you said, your whole, what you have written down. So to me, you know, that's why I wanted to see you here, is to pick your brain and or hire you to help us get this going, because it needs to get going and it needs to get going now.
back up just a little bit. Even if the job is part-time, you are not gonna be able, I don't think, you know, you never know until you try, but I don't think you'd be able to advertise for a part-time guy in Collbran, Colorado and get anybody you want. You know, we're at the end of the road, you know, Mesa too, brother, but we're kind of at the end of the road. And when was the last time you went to a movie? How about out to dinner, you know? People like to do that other than us. You know, this is where we live. We go out to dinner, you know, once a year, to drive to Grand Junction, you know? But a lot of people don't live like us, and so to get a experienced guy with the right education and experience be really hard. You have a better chance if you advertise it as a full-time job. And then try to find enough to keep the guy busy.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think that, Bruce, I think, you know, with Dusty and an administrator, the two people, we could divide all the responsibilities between the two individuals. I mean, give them each some of the responsibilities. We had Jenny and we had Melanie, but I mean, the thing about it is, I think it's reasonable. I don't think it's, from my understanding in the past, we had somebody coming in 2 days a week, and we're paying them a lot of money. They're coming in for 2 days a week. I think we need to find a way to divvy up the responsibilities between Dusty, person in her position, and a town administrator. And while I got the floor, I'm gonna go back and say, I think Ruth has identified his limitations. I think we need to look, if you want some questions, Jessica, on some of those issues, I think they need to be answered by somebody who we hire full-time, somebody who does research and does it full-time. I think if we want to get somebody who's interim, Bruce is not the guy. Bruce is the guy, in my opinion, when we bring people in, we advertise, we get applicants, you need to help us vet those people. That's that area of expertise. Like you said, it's asking the right questions. And if we want somebody to come on in the interim and assist Dusty, I think we need to look at, like we had Barb Smith, we wanted to go with Barb Smith. Somebody like that who can do the kind of clerical work that needs to be done to support, because Bruce is not gonna do the clerical work. That's not his area, you know, he's already identified the reading, the hearing, the seeing is already limitations, and I get that. I have the same experiences. So that's the way I feel. I think we ought to take a look at it. You might want to see Barbara Smith or somebody in that who wants to come on board, be of assistance to Dusty. She has some background. She could do maybe some of the research that you want. But the main thing I think we need to bring Bruce on for is to help us when we get the applications out to the Colorado City and County Management Association. Get them out to CML. Get some applications. Bring some people in, let's do some interviewing, let's get somebody full-time, let's move on, because we're just dilly-dallying on with bringing people in on an interim basis. How many times we're gonna bring people in on an interim basis? Didn't work this time, and so, you know, if we wanna bring Barb in and she can assist, then let's move on. And bring Bruce in for his expertise when we get some applicants, and you can help us vet those people and get somebody on board.
Vetting and training.
Well, I don't want to limit you to reviewing the ordinances and seeing where we're at and making suggestions to where we need to go with all the ordinances that have been passed. So that's my problem, is I don't want to limit you to hiring and recruitment and advisement only. That's what my request is, to evaluate where we are with our water rights. If that's something you want to do, evaluate where we are with tap fees and where we're at with our grants. And we have on the front of our budget for 2025 says we received a grant in the amount of $350,000. In the budget, there's no grant that equals $350,000. So the budget from 2024
You
says
don't have any authorization to spend the money if you get it.
we,
I mean, it's not the appropriation ordinance, so it's like it doesn't exist. You don't have any.
well, they said they've already dipped into this money. So then I go back to the 2024 grant or budget and it says the same paragraph, we received a grant for $350,000. But I go to that line item, there's no grant for $350,000. I mean, we don't know where we're at or what we're doing, Bruce. We need direction.
Carly
and
explained
we need
that.
help.
Carly explained that.
But when you go through and total up the numbers that are in that line, nothing equals $350,000. So
Carla explained that. I want that clarified. She explained where the money is. The $350,000 is in the budget. It's been designated in certain areas.
So
You want to see the 350? No, it's not there, but it has been distributed at different parts of the budget.
from what I understand, the $350,000 was for the water, you know, like taking care of the water. What do you call that water tank? This concrete that's next to the treatment plant.
What's wrong with it?
Well, it needs a new roof.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. I don't believe that it costs $350,000.
No,
I think me and you could build it tomorrow if we wanted to.
right.
When we were younger, I knew.
all I'm suggesting is that I just don't want to suggest that I want to suggest that we not limit our contract with you to helping with staffing. And I agree that we need 2 full-time positions in here, rather it be a clerk and a deputy clerk or an administrator and a clerk. And Kiowa has a population of 800 and they have 2 full-time employees, and that's a manager and a clerk.
Back up just a second.
Mhm.
Just to keep the doors open. We
Right,
need 3 positions in order to have 1 available. And that's right on the bare bones. And that's because of vacation and sick leave, holidays and all that. So you gotta have, as far as I'm concerned, you gotta have a clerk. You'd be smart to have a deputy clerk. You need somebody that's doing the utility billing,
right.
and that person needs to answer to one of those 2. You gotta have at least 3 people in this office.
Full-time,
And
Yeah, pretty much.
that's what we talked about, just like you said, cross training. we need cross training so that if Dusty takes off on vacation or she gets sick or whatever, somebody can, whether it's the deputy clerk. Steps up to the plate and can take care of those things while she's off.
Yeah, you wanna have one experienced and knowledgeable. And then you wanna have another one that you're training to be experienced and knowledgeable.
Right, that has the
That's-
aptitude and the understanding that can pick it up and.
So do we have, I mean, we don't even know if we have the funding to have 3 full-time employees. And then
How
So-
much was your budget last year?
we need,
Total general fund budget, what was it?
negative $1 million some dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it'll take.
I mean,
It's probably your budget, I would guess it's probably, it's probably $1.3 million.
we're in the negative
And-
number for
and you
20.
put- I don't know how you've been doing it. The way I like to do it is the clerk, the deputy clerk, 30%. Or you need, you need to develop some documentation to please the auditor, but some percentage of the clerk and deputy clerk are in the general fund, some percentage in the water fund, some percentage.
Right, yeah.
Maybe you can stand it, your sales tax, county sales tax is probably, I'm guessing, but it's probably 860,000.
$1 million, it's $1 million.
But if you give 350 to the sheriff's office, you're starting to make things difficult.
Right,
I mean, really, yeah. If you're getting good service, you've got a better sheriff now than what we had in the past. Let's put it that way. But they got the same budget problems as everybody else.
Going just like that's gonna go up every year.
Well, it's gonna go up along with the county salaries.
Exactly.
That's what it's gonna
So
do.
we're 350 this year. We don't know what we're gonna be next year. It'd be 352, 360, we don't know. We have for a year. So
All I'm saying is the contract we sign with you, I don't want to limit it to hiring and recruiting and training. I want you to have the freedom to look over anything that needs looked over, the authority. Do you see what I'm
Let me
saying?
tell you, if you haven't guessed this yet, you might as well hear it just straight out. I am not nearly as impressed with specifying stuff,
Mhm.
because I'm not gonna screw you and you're only gonna screw me once.
Mhm.
And then I'm, out of here.
right,
That's
I mean,
why,
it just ain't gonna happen. If you don't pay me. See ya. If you treat me like a dog, see ya.
right,
I mean, that's just, and so when you say. One of the reasons that I need to know. What it is that you want me to do, is obviously to figure out the workload. But in order to be able to figure out a fair compensation. If it was like so many hours, 3 days a week or whatever the number. Then I'd say. Let's make it simple for me and make it an employee basis. I don't really want to be an employee. Like I said before, I want the liability, the verbal,
the protection,
I want that in play,
yeah,
because I've been through that. I went through really bad in Quebec. This guy over there that had a mimeograph machine that would print this stuff off and stick it in everybody's fence over there. And I wanted to sue him so bad. Ed Sands finally got him in court one day. The guy defended himself and interviewed himself and admitted that he deserved it from the army while interviewing himself.
oh,
But yeah, that's.
anyway. So are you interested in giving additional help as needed to review contracts for the ordinances and see where we're at and where we need to go to fix them? Or do you want your contract to just say to aid and assist in
I
hiring?
started on that and I didn't
Okay,
The contract says. Use whatever, just these are just. Susan.
Right.
Reviews the sales tax for the month of. January through March,
mhm,
and something else comes up,
right,
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And if Kendall comes in and says, well, we're not paying you for the time you spent on this other stuff. You go, well, you got the right to say that,
Right,
adios.
no,
Yeah, Kendall won't treat me like that, he's not that kind of guy. But I don't worry, I'm not worried about that.
okay,
I'll do the job, I'll tell you what's gonna happen. One of the things I need to tell you, that you don't, probably don't know, that you're about to have an enormous wastewater treatment plant problem.
yes,
This has been,
put off for years.
I was, 2007, we were fighting over nutrients. And we lost that battle. The small towns, my testimony in front of the Water Quality Control Commission, I said, I need to give my time to the guys that are presenting the hard data, you know, like the stuff you would go to court on.
Mhm.
So I just make this one statement, you pass these nutrient regulations, you have put small towns in Colorado on the endangered species list.
Mhm.
And they referenced my comment, which I thought was pretty amazing, there's like 500 people, but they referenced that comment when they voted to enact the nutrient regulations. So what's gonna come here is ammonia and nitrogen in Plateau Creek. They're gonna be telling you have to build a new wastewater treatment plant.
Mhm.
And the first time they ever said that, it was in 1984.
Mhm.
And I started fighting with them in 1984. And finally won in 2005. I'm serious, went to work other places and came back and my name was still on the permits and stuff. It was easy, it was like I never left. But we fought them for 25 years.
Yeah,
And we had done some things that we put in a gauge below the wastewater treatment plant to measure flow in Plateau Creek. Because the amount of flow makes a big difference as you start doing the arithmetic. You guys got that. And the board, it was costing a lot of money. They were having to pay USGS. One other thing's 20,000 a year. You must have felt like they couldn't afford it, so they haven't paid it. So they abandoned the gauge. Well, now we're gonna want the data that we didn't get. I mean, those are the kind of things that happen
mhm,
when you get people that don't understand.
right,
And you know, when to hire, to take the clerk and expect her to understand wastewater permits and really
right,
a big deal. This is gonna be a huge deal.
yes,
And what you're talking about is probably borrowing a number like $6 or $7 million.
right. They think their water bill's too much now. The other thing is, nobody could produce any documentation, but we're completely financially responsible for the lift station at the school. The town is. We pay the electricity, we pay and it's on the service line, it's not on our side. And nobody knows how that happened.
You know, I should be careful about this because I don't really remember. That's what I ought to say. It just jumped out of my mouth. You own it. Well, I'm not 100% sure that that's right.
She said it's not that way. She said because it's on the service line, it was always the schools, and all the documentation we have is some time ago. We became responsible for the school lift station, and it is on the service line.
It is a service line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's.
I mean, are we gonna take everybody who gets sewer down there and pay for their lift station? Even though it's on the service? I mean,
I think that if the town isn't responsible for the lift station, they should be. And I think that I would have thought that in 1983 when we built it. When we
okay.
installed.
So you do agree it is our
I
responsibility?
think that, and the reason for that, you don't expect people to clean the sewer in the street in front of your house, do you? Town does that.
Yeah.
the wastewater.
Well, is it feasible for everybody who has to install a lift station along that road to connect to our sewer, that we would be responsible for the electricity, the insurance, the replace, all that for the lift station then, for every individual?
I would say that anybody else that connected so as to discharge to that lift station, the first thing they need is the approval of the school.
Mhm,
Number one, you can't get there without an easement across school property,
mhm.
but the school would have to agree to that. And lift stations, like everything else, have limited capacity.
Right.
That one I'm sure has plenty. I say I'm sure, and remember, I don't know, it's been a long time. But the second thing, so they would need the school to say, okay. But then they need to pay a tap fee to the town,
Mhm.
and they need to get a sewer bill.
Right.
And I don't think I don't remember. Some towns I have done that, where we have a separate rate for
Added
sewer
to-
charge with the lift station.
Oh,
we-
okay,
Make
okay.
the concept, they only make the people pay for the electrical in that lift station,
Oh,
or some portion of it, try to get it fair. I don't think that's the case in Collbran.
okay.
I couldn't name another place where there's a sewer on lift station.
Now, I don't know where they're at, but just case in point. KLJ over on Grove Creek, when the Weeklies had it, they had. City water, but they had their own septic and leach field, which was working at the time.
Which house, where are you talking
Um,
about? Up Grove Creek?
up Grove Creek. It was Weeklies and they paid the tap fees, so they got the water, but. Their septic and sewer were still working, and I think there's a state statute that you can't force them to hook up to the sewer. Until that fails, but I could be incorrect on that, but at any rate. That house, and I believe it has failed now, so KLJ is having to, I don't know if they've already bored the road and have a lift station to come up to the sewer. That goes in front of the Gene Scott subdivision and then down. Grove Creek. But that's one where, they're
Is
probably
that where not George, Javon lives? Is that the house you're talking?
just below Javon. There's actually. A modular below Javon where Jeff, our deputy marshal, lives, and then the house below that.
There's a house over there that's on a lift station.
Right,
I can remember a young woman. Had built a house and and it's on the lift station, or she has a grinder pump, I'm not sure which.
that
I
would,
remember the problem so they make a grinder pump that
right,
it goes in the basement, and so each house would have its own.
that's Javon's house, I believe, the blonde that Mark and Linda, I think was her name.
I'm too old, I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm getting there myself, but. Weekly's was still working as far as the county, and they their septic and sewer were still working. But they didn't want to have to pay that $50-some thousand to hook up to our sewer. And put more of a burden on our sewer plant. So as long as it was working, the county left them alone, but.
See, I don't, I don't know whether that's part of the Scott subdivision, like where Gary lives.
It's right across the
Or
street.
whether it's, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's right across the street. I don't know.
If I don't know for sure. One way or another, I just. Let them live in peace,
Right,
we don't need to start a fight with anybody.
right. As long as it's
If they get to
working.
where when the sewage is ankle deep in their bathroom, they'll come and ask for help.
Right,
That's what you deal with.
right.
Well, I'd like to motion that we create a contract with Bruce Smith for staffing evaluation, advisement, and general assistance, and let him negotiate with our attorney and create a contract that we can come back and review.
When we had last meeting. You asked to meet and talk with Bruce. But the thing about it, what I'm hearing is, and no offense, Bruce. If we're in a situation, we're looking for somebody to do what you're making the motion to do, then why is that we're only considering Bruce, we're not considering other people? How is it that we get a narrow down to just one individual?
Because he's temporary, we're wanting somebody that's gonna be here permanently, like he said, somebody that's young. That can learn all this stuff and grow, so if he can, help them with that so that they're headed the right direction, then it's worth paying him to do so. I think that's part of the problem we had with, and I really like Wilson, but he was a 3-year attorney, and now he's on his way out. He's willing to stay through June, but it's been a learning process for him as well. He's had to go back to senior attorneys to advise him which way to go on some things. So this isn't a permanent situation. That's the difference that I think that we're seeing.
So what we need is somebody to evaluate how much we're gonna pay, how many hours a week, the scope of practice. And
Just you come up with one name and that's what we're supposed to move on without considering other individuals who might be able to do the same thing, no offense.
That's all right.
You know that.
yeah, he has an 8-year education. Barb has experience. She has a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
experience.
years of experience as a town administrator.
How much education?
Well, you saw it. You certified clerk. I'm just saying, what I'm saying is just because you bring in one individual, now we're moving with it without considering other individuals. No, right.
I contacted Bruce to see if he had any ideas and to see if he'd be willing to do just a short time consulting. He's not looking for a permanent long-term. He doesn't have skin in the game, Gary. And he can look at Barb's experience and he can talk to Barb and evaluate if she's a good fit for us. She also doesn't want to be a full-time employee, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. She wants to start out, she said, at 3 days and possibly come down to 2, but there might be some things that he could point out to her that she says, oh, that makes sense to make her more efficient. That's all I'm asking is so that he can help the staff be as efficient and feel confident that they're doing the job right. Like Dusty said, having a deputy clerk that can fill in for her if she's gone. Even if Mike comes over and helps with billing and such, if he's, so willing to do so. I don't want to burden Mike with a bunch of stuff, but he's got 2 guys that can watch over things while he's, he did agree to become the maintenance manager. So we have the foundation of the sewer and the water and the streets. And we have a good, Mike's been certified plumber for 20 some years. We have a good person there, but he's also young enough that he wants to stay for long term. And I think can work with Dusty. I mean, I haven't been here and had any conversation with them, but what I've seen them do together as far as communication and rear meetings, and we just had a little bit of a glitch. They worked it right out from what I could see. So, I mean, Dusty, you can chime in anytime.
Yeah. I do agree on your comments about Mike. I think he's a wonderful asset to this community. And I think maybe some of what has been lacking is that collaboration and team. And I think that's important to bring back. That.
I think you could help us work together as a team and more collaboration. That's all I'm saying. It may be an asset to Barb if, say, we bring Barb on from the 40 years of experience. Oh, you're right, I could do this, or it would make it more efficient because we want to make her time or whomever's time we're paying as efficient as we possibly can.
But then that goes back again, we need a full-time position, not somebody who wants 3 days and then work down to 2 days. Correct?
I'm not so sure about that. There are some managers that will work in a town for a couple of days and then
Work from home, doing stuff, right?
Yeah, work from home and do grants from home, or whatever. I mean, like I say, we're gonna pay Bruce for what Bruce does.
How much are we paying Bruce?
$500 an hour.
How much?
I do.
Hey, Gary, you've got another name?
Pardon?
You've got another name?
Do I have
A
another name?
perspective, I mean.
Oh, no, this is just when we were looking for an interim before, and we hired a lady. And the name I came up with was just somebody else who we seriously considered as well.
Well, if you have somebody,
Well, here's the deal. We don't know what to put in the contract, okay? We hired an interim administrator who we went with her because she said she was available to open this office 4 days a week. She didn't do that. I went back and looked at the contract. We didn't include that in the contract. We don't know what we're doing and we need advisement. This is why the first step would get somebody who gets us back on track and can review where we are with these ordinances, where we are, where we need to be, and review what the contract should look like and the kind of experience that we need. And that's all I'm asking.
And that's kind of on us, because I assumed, and my understanding was that she would be in the office 3 or 4 days a week. But she could also work, remote from her van if she needed to. But
I don't like that, because I think it opens the door for you to get cheated.
right,
I mean, it's
right,
kind of got the stink. on it.
right. That's why I thought it was gonna be available for here, and I even, for Dusty not getting the training, we could have locked the doors in the morning so that Dusty could have got the training that she needed, rather than having to handle all the little stuff. And then open the door in the afternoon so that the rest of the office could have been handled, so Dusty would be ahead of the game. I mean, she's come a long ways, and I think she has the aptitude that a lot of people don't, just from her experience. So,
And she's really easy to work with,
yes,
and we'd like to keep her.
Who?
Dusty.
You haven't beaten her nearly enough.
Before, I can tell you that.
Well, I have a motion on the floor and I have to go because I have you second, okay.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, may we have a vote?
Trustee Winkleblack,
No.
trustee Price,
Yes,
trustee Bethel,
Yeah.
trustee Solid,
Yes.
Mayor Wilcox.
Yes.
Motion passed.
thank you.
So why did you vote no, Gary?
Because I just don't feel, it just seems like, we talked about transparency, but we didn't, brought you in, but we didn't consider other people that we've considered before. When we brought Angie in, we didn't consider anybody else.
But we're still considering that because he's gonna help hire.
He's a middleman.
That's
Okay.
what I thought.
Are you, well,
I know,
you're not comfortable. I don't want.
no, it's not about that.
I'm
Not at all.
not coming down here to fight.
I know.
Do that with home.
That's not at all. You have great, experience in this town. You can answer a lot of questions. You did today. I get that. You have a lot to offer. I'm just talking about, we have this redundancy of transparency. And I don't think that's what happened here. It's got nothing to do with you and your qualifications. And like you addressed earlier, the thing about it is, and you're gonna be on board helping us, but the situation. If anybody does any research on the town of Collbran right now, it's gonna be tough to fill this position with what's going on currently, what has gone on in the last 3, 4, 5 months. So, That's what I'm saying, is I just want to sit there and make sure that we're all on the right track. And so, you know, I think you'll do a great job.
Even since, well, not just the last 3, 4, 5 months, but the last 20 years, basically.
I don't see it that way, but you know, that could be.
And I only say that from personal experience, because I came in and the clerk we had it, the administrator and the clerk that we had then would not even let somebody come in and get on the agenda to speak to the town board, which I feel was the citizens' right to speak to the board,
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yes.
Whether they need a variance, whether they're having a problem in their neighborhood. I don't care if it's a dog barking or whatever, I feel they have a right to speak to their board, and that's what we're here for.
You have the right to cut them off if they get long-winded and all that, but you need to do that.
Right, that's where it started for me personally. Okay.
Good seeing you, Bruce.
Yes.
We are adjourned on the road of Mesa on 65.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And these ladies.